Good morning, everyone, to this Digital SME and NetworldEurope's workshop on 5G, edge computing, and IoT. Today's workshop consists of two panels, one on market access and uptake of SME solutions, and the second one on technical aspects of 5G. My name is Annika Link, and I'm the EU Policy Manager at the European Digital SME Alliance. At Digital SME, our main priority is to ensure that small and medium-sized enterprises in the digital sector can have a say in policy discussions at the European level. Our aim with this type of workshop is to inform our constituency about topical debates, which have a direct impact on their business in the ICT sector. To organize this workshop, we have partnered up with NetworldEurope SME Group, which brings together SMEs that are developing solutions in 5G, edge computing, and IoT, among others. Today, the Digital SME Alliance and NetworldEurope SME Working Group are holding their first joint online workshop on 5G, edge computing, and IoT. The workshop will discuss opportunities and challenges of market access and the uptake of SME solutions. Before going to the panel discussion, I would like to briefly hand over the floor to both Mr. Fabio Guasconi and Ms. Vera Stafulaki. Mr. Fabio Guasconi is the chairman of Digital SMEs Working Group Cyber. Fabio, I would like to hand over to you to give you the opportunity to quickly present the Working Group Cyber's work and the context of this workshop.
Thank you very much, Annika, and good morning to everybody. I hope that you're correctly seeing my small presentation. I will briefly introduce you. Now should be better. I will briefly introduce you to the European Digital SME Alliance and its purposes. So European Digital SME Alliance is the European first and largest SME association. It is an association of associations, and within its 30 members, it reaches out for about 45,000 digital SMEs in all Europe, which is pretty good number and variety. We have organized different vertical working groups to better focus on all the relevant aspects within technology, within security, within the most sensitive topics which have to deal with small, medium enterprises and key aspects of technology. So as you can see, we have 8 main working groups here. I'm the chairman of the working group Cyber, which is in charge of cybersecurity or information security or computer security, whatever you want to call it, and data protection or privacy topics. But there are many other working groups which are also in charge of very interesting topics like artificial intelligence, blockchain, skills, digitalization, standards, and sustainability, for example, and intellectual property rights, of course. So those working groups are made for experts to work together to bring the SMEs experience and expertise out and available for all the associates and also beyond them, touching also the main European bodies that are in charge of regulations, for example, on those topics. Speaking about the working group Cyber, we have more than 40 experts participating to it, and those experts represent 12 countries right now. We are trying intensively to give Europe and give the SME voice in Europe a stronger position and to be involved in all relevant standardization activities and also regulation activities that are impacting all SMEs, which always have difficulties being represented at a unified level. this is also an occasion to have exchanges between experts and to go out with initiatives. We will see a little bit what we have done in the last few years. For example, we have published a guide for the implementation on ISO 27001, which is one of the most important information security standards in the market. And this guide is freely available, and it has practical guidance on how to do it and how to improve information security generally within an SME. We have also published an SME guide on information security controls. We are working on different. We have been working on different position papers on the most relevant elements, regulations, and from a legislation perspective that are being handled at the European level, and we are still doing that on the most recent initiatives. We are also in the process of working on a cybersecurity label on a repository of European cybersecurity and privacy research and innovation initiatives, which is aimed to map them all across Europe. And we are participating to initiatives and boards like the NISA cybersecurity certification groups and the EXO working group 4 in support of SMEs. We have also performed and participated to different events and workshops. Our intention is to give freely the opportunity and the information to all the participants on specific topics like the ones you see here. We have done this in the past. We will keep doing it in the future on all the vertical topics which have more interest and we can foster debate about on cybersecurity topics. So this is all from my side. I thank you very much for your attention, your participation, and I hope you will enjoy all the rest of this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabio. With this, I would like to hand over to Vera, please, to present NetworldEurope's working group, SME working group.
Okay, hello also from my side. My name is Vera Stavroulaki from Wings ICT Solutions, and I have the honor to represent the NetworldEurope SME Working Group in this workshop today. First of all, I would like to thank all of the participants for joining and also the colleagues from the European Digital SME Alliance for organizing this workshop, our first joint workshop and hopefully not our last. NetworldEurope is the new name of the European technology platform for communications, networks and services. It has been known for the past few years as Networld 2020. NetworldEurope gathers all major European players from the communication system sector, such as industry leaders, innovative SMEs and leading academic institutions. It currently has more than 1,000 members. The NetworldEurope SME Working Group is the voice of the NetworldEurope SME community, as well as a networking place for all SMEs in the telecommunications sector. It has, for example, been instrumental in reaching 23% participation of SMEs in the 5G public-private partnership. The NetworldEurope SME Working Group currently involves more than 210 members, including 190 SMEs. So that was all from my side, very quick, and I hope everybody enjoys this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Vera. Very impressive numbers, and we're always happy when organizations manage to really get SMEs also involved in these really important areas such as 5G. So I think this is a really nice starting point also to link to our first panel, because we're going to be talking about market access and uptake of SME solutions. Whereas in the second one, we're going to have examples of SME providers bringing their solutions to the market. So yeah, I would like to welcome 4 distinguished panelists. Our first speaker today will be Milda Kaklowskaja from EXO, the European organization. Milda such as cybersecurity, market analysis and investment promotion, competitiveness, and scaling up opportunities for the European cybersecurity startups and SMEs, as well as European cooperation on cybersecurity. Our next speaker will be Mr. Goran Milenkovic from ENISA. He is a senior cybersecurity manager with expertise in cyber policy development and implementation, information security risk management, and cybersecurity awareness raising and education. Goran leads activities of ENISA, the European Agency for Cybersecurity, in supporting European Commission and EU member states in managing cyber risks through 5G networks, and supporting the overall cybersecurity of electronic communication services in Europe. Then our third speaker is Mr. Samuel Fricke, who is an assistant professor at the Blekinge Institute of Technology and a professor of requirements engineering at the FHNW in Switzerland. Samuel is interested in small products that solve big challenges. He has more than 10 years of experience as a senior consultant, a global process responsible lecturer, and a senior researcher in software product management and requirements engineering. And our final speaker in this panel is Mr. Thanasis Genitsos, apologies for probably not pronouncing it completely correctly, from UBTech. Thanasis is the head of Secure Systems and Trusted Computing section in UBTech, leading the research activities related to the design of strong, secure, privacy-preserving and trusted computing protocols for a wide range of systems and networks. With this short introduction, I would like to give the floor to our speakers now for a short presentation. To all participants, you're very welcome to ask questions. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so you can raise your hand. There should be an option for you to raise your hand, and then we can give you the floor once the presentations are finished, and you can ask your question. You can also put a question in the chat. Yeah, and also maybe just to mention, because we're broadcasting this workshop, sometimes people may be speaking very freely. So in general, we try to call this similar to the, we usually ask participants to not directly quote, because everyone may be just representing their own perspective and not necessarily the one of the organization. So to double check any quotes that you want to use with the participants later. Milda, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Annika. I hope you can hear me well and see my screen. My name is Milda Kaklowskaja. I'm working at European Cybersecurity Organization, and today I would like to present you our quite new initiative, is Cybersecurity Made in Europe label, which is focusing on helping SMEs to kind of position themselves on the both European and global market. So just a few words about my organization. So EXO, European Cybersecurity Organization, is a association based in Brussels, and we unite cybersecurity stakeholders from across Europe. So we have more than 260 members, and we unite not only industry representatives, but also public administrations, investors, regions, and clusters. So as you can see in this graph, in our 6 working groups, we cover the entire value chain of cybersecurity. And the label that I'm going to talk about today comes from our activities related with market deployment and addressing the challenges of cybersecurity market in Europe. So exactly, a quick definition of Cybersecurity Made in Europe label and what it is. So it is a marketing tool that we have designed and crafted to promote European cybersecurity companies and basically to increase the visibility on the European and on the global market. I'm not sure. Can you see my screen still?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, there was some hiccup on my screen. Okay, great. So sorry for this interruption. And here I want to emphasize that this is a marketing tool because I think today there's certification is a huge topic, and when people hear the label, they somehow connect it with certification. So I just want to emphasize that this is not anyhow related with certifications, and I think I would, after defining or introducing the label, I also would like to kind of quickly describe what it is not. So as I mentioned, it's not a certification tool, and it does not require a technical audit. It's based on self-assessment and self-declaration. So I think this is the major difference. Also, how it differs from certification is that the label does not target cybersecurity products or services. We target the company. So this label is for the company, not for the products or services it provides. And also, as I mentioned, it's the main target group of this initiative is startups and SMEs, because they usually have the biggest challenges in positioning themselves on the market. However, we don't exclude large companies if they want to get the label. And of course, this label is a European label, but it does not compete with similar national labels, because as you might know, France has their own national cybersecurity label. There's a label in Poland and some other countries. So after this brief introduction, I just would like to kind of present you what the reasons or the context in which this label was created. So as you think you also know quite well, cybersecurity is one of the fastest growing markets globally. However, in Europe, it's still fragmented. And another big feature of Europe is that most of European cybersecurity companies are SMEs or small micro companies. And of course, they have limited resources to kind of position themselves on the market and get this market visibility. And as a consequence, Europe really lacks champions in cybersecurity, and this graph on the left kind of very well illustrates how Europe looks like when it comes in comparison with other countries. And one of the main reasons identified in our working groups is that there is the absence of international marketing and business development initiatives which would help SMEs to grow and position themselves on the market. And here there's a few also another graphs which shows also the funding gap in Europe. Which also kind of contributes that we don't have these European champions in cybersecurity. So this is kind of like brief context that we operate in. And here's the example that I think everybody will agree that we have great companies in Europe, but because of this market fragmentation and the funding gap, they usually get acquired by non-European companies. And as you can see in this slide, it illustrates very well the situation. So given this context, we created this label which should help the companies to position themselves on the market. And so basically here the key benefits is that the label serves as a market differentiator based on the geographic location. So it means that the companies can position themselves as Europeans, meaning that they develop and build their business based on this trusted European values, privacy, and data requirements. And as such, it increases companies' visibility among potential business partners, investors, and so on. And I think also here I would like to draw the connection with the recently revisited NIS directive, which kind of talks a lot about the non-technical factors that should be taken into account when it comes to supply chain risk assessment management. And as you know, they are referring a lot to this EU's toolbox for 5G security, and where they talk about also these non-technical factors, which usually includes, for example, the compliance with international agreements, data privacy requirements, and so on, even the governance of the country. So it clearly shows that there's this a new look of having European as an important factor. And also another interesting point that is raised in this NIS revisited directive is when it comes about the national cybersecurity strategy, and they talk about the procurement requirements, where they also mention the importance of cybersecurity related products and their security. So, for example, one of the public procurement requirements is that the company should be based in Europe. And for example, there's Sweden as a concrete example, where in the strategic sectors, when it comes to public procurement, if the company wants to participate in the procurement, they have to be European. So it is like basically the main requirement. Talking about the kind of technicalities of the label, so who can apply? So obviously, as we say, this cybersecurity made in Europe, European companies can apply, and concretely, because for some people Europe ends differently, so in different geographies. So concretely, companies from European Union, from Free Trade Association and European Economic Area, as well as from United Kingdom, they can apply for the label. And the label is, after successful application, the label is valid for 12 months, and then the companies can renew it if they wish. And the label also includes some cost, but cost depends on the qualified issuing partner who issues the label. But more about the qualified issuers later on. So also there are certain criteria that the company has to meet in order to get the label. So of course it has to prove that it's headquartered in Europe, that they have the major ownership is in Europe, they're not controlled by the outside entities. Most of their R&D activities are based in Europe. Also, they have to provide the kind of assessment of this ENISA's indispensable baseline security requirements. And of course, they have to prove that they respect European data and privacy requirements. So these are the key requirements. And again, who issues the label? So EXA has a network of qualified issuers who actually issue the label, and companies have to contact them. And companies, as it is a European label, companies can choose any issuing partner, regardless of their location, where their headquarters are located, because this is a European label. So we give this freedom of companies to choose. And of course, I would like to emphasize that EXA does not accept applications as such, but we help our partners in kind of promoting the label and implementing their everyday activities. And these are the 16 qualified issuers. And a European Digital SME Alliance is one of them. And also, I would like to emphasize that they also, since the beginning, they contributed in building the label. Since we started 2 years ago. And our partners are doing an excellent job in issuing the labels. So today we have more than 60 labels issued to the European companies. And more information about like the label and who who are the companies who got the label, and as well as the contacts of qualified issuers you can get on the label website, so cybersecurity-label.eu, where you can find more information. I will not expand more on this. And I would like to thank for listening to my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Milda. Really, really interesting. Also really impressive to see that Europe is so advanced in developing cybersecurity solutions, that there are so many SMEs doing that. I mean, you said 74% of the companies developing cybersecurity solutions are SMEs. And indeed, the EXOS initiative to issue such a label is really important here, because as you mentioned, it can maybe help to bridge this gap in terms of availability of marketing tools. So yeah, thank you so much for explaining all of that. And maybe just one short question to bridge also to the next speaker. So in general, the cybersecurity made in Europe is really expected to help SMEs expand their digital solutions to be able to market them better. Maybe very briefly, do you see like the question so far is the perception of that positive? Yeah, maybe just a final word on that. To you, Milda, if you can just give us a first impression of these of the uptake.
I'm not sure if I really get entirely your question, because you were a bit the connection was not stable. But I think when it comes to the SMEs using this this label kind of to promote themselves, of course I should mention that this label does not solve their challenges and problems overnight. Though it's a big step towards like helping them in like positioning themselves on the market, and we already saw a very good examples of how these SMEs are actually leveraging the label and like promoting this themselves and presenting to the potential business partners and investors. And also we saw also the very positive reactions, let's see, from the other side, from end users and integrators who are using the cybersecurity solutions. And as I briefly kind of try to kind of draw parallels with this NIS directive, for end users, it's also it's becoming more and more important to use the solutions and know where they're coming from. Meaning that they are European, because as I think you all know, Europe puts a lot of emphasis and a lot of attention to data privacy requirements and so on, while in some other countries, built-in backdoors are even required by law. So there's already a huge difference between European and non-European solutions. And I think as customers are becoming more and more savvy around the world, given also different sectors, not only cybersecurity. So the same actually now is becoming more relevant in cybersecurity sector, that let's see the customers, the end users, integrators are becoming savvy, and they are taking care of what kind of solutions are going to be implemented. And as the same as also here, I think half of the audience today is cybersecurity providers, and another maybe half or so are cybersecurity end users and integrators. So I think for them it's also important to know that the solutions they're choosing, they're coming from the companies who are based in Europe.
Thank you so much, Milda, for stressing this point. Really, really interesting. I hear that unfortunately my connection is sometimes a bit unstable, so I'm going to hand over the floor to Mr. Goran Milenkovic. Goran, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I apologize for not being able to use the video for technical reasons, but as long as sound works, I think we can make it work. So Good morning. First, to thank you for the organizer for inviting me to this very interesting workshop. My name is Goran Milenkovic. I work in ENISA, the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity. I think we are probably familiar with it for what it is and why it is there. Just a brief reminder, the agency main mission is to achieve high common level of cybersecurity across the European Union. And it does that in cooperation with wider community, and that wider community also includes SMEs, by the way. And the main goal basically is to strengthen trust in connected economy, to boost resilience and trust of the union's infrastructure and services, and in general to keep our society and citizens cyber secure, digitally secure. I work in policy development and implementation unit, and I'm going to briefly provide you an overview of policy regulatory aspect of securing 5G in Europe. Next slide, please. This probably we all know already that 5G comes with a lot of opportunities, with a lot of promises. On the strategic EU level, the expectation is that it provides huge potential for EU economy, that it's expected to power the critical infrastructure in Europe, to underpin services and functions that are crucial, that are vital for both society and economy. For SMEs, this means a myriad of opportunities, whether to, as previous speaker rightly noticed, whether to exploit or to actually provide services, or to exploit what 5G network brings, or to contribute to these networks. But opportunities are numerous, and we are all aware of this. So I'm not really going to go through all the use cases that you know, but I listed some of those that are frequently seen as benefits for SMEs, like improved mobility, offering elevated customer experience, benefiting Internet of Things, connected vehicles, things, more so creating the space in which SMEs could profit from investment in innovation and basically creating new business models. All this is nice, but all of this can only work if it's secure, because there is no doubt of it. If the basic security of the network is compromised, being it availability, that the network is not available, being it integrity, that you cannot trust whether the signals coming to your vehicle are genuine, being it confidentiality, whether you cannot trust to protect privacy of data you are changing with your customers, any of this compromise, none of these business opportunities can be achieved. So when it comes to security, the situation is it's slightly paradoxical. In one hand, 5G is by definition secure. It comes with a lot of technical security enhancements in comparison to previous networks, in terms of confidentiality, better confidentiality, privacy, more advanced authentication, you name it. It's a dimension level, one dimension higher, secure, more secure than previous generation of network. At the same time, there are a lot of challenges. The overall attack surface is extended. There are a lot of reliance on virtualization. There are a lot of reliance in the new, in the fully fledged and deployed 5G network, reliance on third parties. There's a question of trust and so on. For these reasons, the EU policymakers looked at the security and how to improve it. Next slide, please. Without going into all the details of what I showed here, and by the way, this is not the full policy landscape, but I will just mention a couple of things that are important. So ECC is the European Communication Code, European Electronic Communication Code, which is the piece of legislation that came into force in 2018. This is not the first legal instrument that regulated how mobile network operators and how telecom operators do their business, and also how they implement security. It was before, but this one is important also for you because it, in terms of security, it extends availability to also ensure confidentiality and integrity. So it's like a more complete package. When it comes specifically to 5G, the work on in EU on policy regulating of 5G security started beginning of 2019 with Commission recommendation of 5G security, and that recommendation created the roadmap. What followed later is two important developments which are shown here. First is development of EU coordinated risk assessment in a quite unique process where cybersecurity authorities in individual member states did their own national level risk assessments, which were then by the help of ENISA coordinated into one single repository of risks. Not going through the whole list of risks that you could also see here on the screen. The bottom line is that there are basically two categories, two types. There's those that are going in the direction of trust. Can we trust? Can we? How risky are suppliers that are from non-EU? Can we trust them? Are there backdoors? Is it the products coming parts that are going to be part of the network? Are they secure enough if they are not? If they maybe can they come under influence of another third state? So more geopolitical strategic risks, but they're purely technical risk like for any network. So building on this, what has been done and what ENISA has heavily contributed to the development of the so-called EU toolbox on 5G security, which is the repository of recommendations of mitigating measures on covering both of these aspects: strategic measures through regulatory powers, monitoring of third-party suppliers, basically supply chain, more or less part of thing, and there's technical measures. So this is now, even though voluntary, it's a key piece of key legal instrument that drives further the implementation of secure environment, of the environment in which networks could be secure. If you go to the next slide, I will mention a couple of things which I think are important also in this context. In addition to this policy work and legal instruments that are developed normally by through the cooperation led by the European Commission, and in which member states have basically the essential say. What is also interesting I would like to emphasize is that ENISA, as a cybersecurity agency, created a lot of supplementary supporting documents and guidelines. This is all shown at the bottom in red, and I think it's quite. Some of them all of them are publicly available, of course. They look, for example, at threat landscape and different aspects of the network, providing much more technical information about the vulnerabilities, about the threats, and also about the controls that could be applied. We also last year published the guideline for implementation of European Electronic Communication Code with 5G supplement, which is basically a set of how regulatory authorities can check whether the operators actually make their network secure or not. And there were other publications there. So with this, we are trying to help member states understand what cybersecurity means, and also to help other players, particularly operators, to adjust their security management to meet these requirements. Going further, what we are working at the moment, what is depicted in orange on the right-hand side of the screen, we are developing 5G security controls matrix, with which we are trying to merge all this to create a repository of all these different security controls and to make one-stop shop for this. We are also looking deeper into the area of NFV, which is virtualization security, basically, because this is one of the key foundational elements on which the 5G networks will be built. And this all fits into the next steps on cybersecurity, which are defined in EU cybersecurity strategy that the Commission has published at the end of last year, which basically goes in the direction of information sharing, capacity building, and promoting supply chain. Before wrapping up, one thing to mention that probably is of high interest in this forum is the 5G certification. ENISA, as you may know already, has a mandate under the Cybersecurity Act has a mandate to contribute to the development of European cybersecurity certification schemes, which are really important piece of important tool to establish and maintain trust in security and services and processes. This is probably one of the most important things for SMEs. Can you trust the solutions that you are getting? Or for operators, can they trust the equipment? So how to ensure this level of assurance? So when it comes to certification of 5G specifically, if you can see in the top right corner, if you go to the next slide, so in the top right corner, I just put a reference to the toolbox, because toolbox defines multiple measures, and some of them basically say there has to be a certification scheme. So this, what is called TM09, it explicitly says that there should be using of EU certification for 5G network components, customer equipments, and supplier processes. In order to implement that, European Commission has requested ENISA in Q1 this year. It happened. Has submitted the request to ENISA to start to draft candidate certification scheme for 5G network components and equipment. And this process here is triggered. What you can see on this slide is the relatively decently complicated and long process as defined, visualization of the process as defined in Cybersecurity Act. There are many steps there. So we are only at the beginning of this process when it comes to 5G security, but there are other certification schemes, like for example for cloud, that are in more advanced stage. And I want to conclude with the final slide. If you go to the next one. So in conclusion, 5G definitely, there is no doubt, comes with great opportunities that could directly boost revenue, create business models, and offer not just a little bit faster 4G. That's not the point. Offer really new opportunities. But it is really crucial to make it secure, to exploit the benefits. And to make it secure, yes, the first step is that the underlying technical specifications include security provisions, but that's not enough. There is a need for regulatory push, for policy context which would ensure that this security is actually implemented. Hence, there is intensive work on policy and regulatory front in EU, which is risk-based, and the 5G toolbox that I mentioned is a central piece, a central element in that process. And it deals with both dealing with supply chain risk, but also for nationally, how do you enhance your regulation to ensure that security measures are taken. What's in it for SMEs? We can debate longer, but basically, it's first relying on more secure networks and services, because, as mentioned, there is no alternative to that. Insecure network would not realize any of these benefits. Ensure gaining this trust through assurance schemes and certifications, and for those SMEs that also my previous speaker, my predecessor, highlighted a lot of SMEs who with direct expertise in 5G, they have now opportunities to contribute to this complex landscape, but at the same time the landscape that together with threats, it brings myriad of opportunities, especially for technically savvy SMEs who can provide services related to cybersecurity. With that, I would like to finish for now, and happy to take any questions now or at the end of the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Goran. My first question would have also been, what is really in it for SMEs, but you already answered that. So I think we can move any further questions to the debate later on and give the floor now to Mr. Samuel Fricker, who's going to talk about solutions for SMEs to help market access and uptake. So Samuel, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see the slides. Perfect.
Oh, okay, very good. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk here about the Geiger project. I'm Samuel Fricker, from a professor at the University of Applied Sciences, Northwestern Switzerland, and the coordinator of this Horizon 2020 project. Geiger is a special project and in my eyes, a really interesting innovation project. It attempts to bring cybersecurity technology, and here we aim for SME-provided cybersecurity to SME cybersecurity users. Let me shortly outline what the challenge is that we are addressing. You see here in this photograph, it's a smartphone of one of our members, a hairdresser, who experienced a smishing attack. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us in the project, the attack was successful. So she is a hairdresser, and once she discovered that actually this was an attack rather than a voicemail, she was very, very worried that she could be responsible for infecting her customers and partners. And as all of you know, successful attacks can be severe, and severe attacks can lead to disastrous effects on the business of an SME. It can even lead to the SME being terminated because of the consequences. Interesting for me is the SME target group also, because we are having a huge number of SMEs. So in Europe, we are having about 25 million SMEs. If you look at the economy and count the number of companies, it's almost all companies belong to that category. So almost all companies in the economy are SMEs. We were at the very beginning of the project interested in who exactly are these SMEs, and we started up with the taxonomy proposed by the Digital SME Alliance, which you see here illustrated with these few photographs. So we have a dependent SME, which means it's simply using digital technology to run the analog business. Digitally based SMEs, which are building the business on ICT, enabler SMEs, which are producing digital technologies, including cybersecurity technologies, and then in the early stage of these companies, startup companies. We were then also looking at what is the number of employees, or what is the number of SMEs by number of employees. And we see here actually the statistics, and I would like to mention here it's based on Swiss statistics, and European numbers are estimates, but correlate actually with these numbers in Switzerland. So what we see here is the smallest of all companies, so 1 to 9 employees. This is also at the same time the largest group of companies. And then the larger the company gets, the less common these companies are. But in total, the SMEs make up here almost 100% of all companies in the economy. What Geiger is now doing, it looks at very specific types of SMEs, and actually it targets the largest number of SMEs, which according to the statistics that are used here as a basis, are the digitally dependent and digitally based SMEs, which are belong to the category of small companies. So these companies make up almost 90% of the total economy in terms of number of companies. At the same time, in Geiger, we are looking at these enabler SMEs and looking at how can we build a platform, how can we build a channel so that cybersecurity technologies coming from these enabler SMEs can actually be delivered to these user SMEs, the green ones. The red ones, or the yellow ones, we're also considering. However, this is more by accident rather than by specific plan. For us, the most interesting ones are actually going from this enabler to the dependent, going from the enablers to the small dependent or digitally based SMEs. We were doing some studies in order to better understand of how can we reach this target group, and a result was actually presented this summer at the ARES conference. And interesting for me are the columns ITE, the column CSEA, as well as then the associated column cybersecurity improvement needs. ITE means is there any IT expertise inside the company? And you see actually that the large number of companies has actually no ICT knowledge. They're just using ICT because they have to use it, but it's not their primary interest, and it's also not their primary skills. Then when it comes to these ones here, are these SMEs having some cybersecurity expertise within the SME itself, or at least access to some SMEs? And we actually discovered that among the dependent SMEs, we could do two subclasses. One class called the abandoned SMEs, which had neither ICT knowledge nor any access to cybersecurity knowledge, and or unskilled SMEs are SMEs which have ICT expertise. They know what it is and how to handle it. However, they have no cybersecurity expertise. And as a consequence, it's not surprising that the main target for these SMEs is to motivate them, to provide them with knowledge or access to knowledge, to connect them maybe to experts, provide them training and guidance in order to help them to improve in cybersecurity. This is opposed to the enabler SMEs, which have experts usually inside their SMEs, according to our study results here. And they are more interested in news about cybersecurity. They're more interested in better understanding of how cybersecurity evolves, and respectively contribute themselves to the evolution of cybersecurity technology. So you see, actually, when you enter into these different categories of SMEs, you will observe with great likelihood these kind of differences, which I have summarized here on this slide. This is the basis that we are using in the Geiger project to create impact. So our aim is to reach and winning SMEs, and I have to honestly admit this is very challenging. Not only because I'm academic, but also for our industry partners, is far not straightforward. So what we have done in the project, we set some KPIs, which for our piloting, so during the project lifetime until the end of the next year, that we want to be able to reach 100,000 SMEs with the aim of being aware of Geiger. And secondly, out of this 100,000, have 1,000 that will have tried Geiger. And setting these KPIs was very interesting inside the project to observe the dynamics of the thinking and the dialogue, because the drive kind of what the project then eventually is doing. So we have a three-step approach that we are pursuing. So number one, we want to produce cybersecurity, a cybersecurity approach which is suitable and desirable by these SMEs. We want to do large-scale piloting, meeting these KPIs, which I was just mentioning. And then last part is we want to prepare the exploitation phase then for EU-wide rollout, so to scaling and to deliver a sustainable rollout. We have, due to the significant numbers here for an innovation project, we have decided to use a diversity of approaches towards actually reaching these numbers, towards reaching SMEs, respectively motivating SMEs to try things out and to improve the cybersecurity of their company. Number one, in terms of technology solution, is we want to produce a desirable cybersecurity, and the most important factor here for this green SMEs that I was showing before is it is simple. So we tried to simplify cybersecurity for them to the max. And what we have done is we looked at the atomic radiation, the Geiger indicator, or the Geiger counter, which is basically one number which tells you how secure that you are in terms of atomic radiation. And we took that principle and translated it into the SME environment, giving an instrument which is as simple as this one here, telling you this is how secure your company is. Evidently, this is only working if the relevant sensors are connected to that device. Respectively, then the numbers are justified with recommendations that are relevant and easy to adopt by the SMEs. How do we raise awareness about Geiger? Well, one of the channels, one of the strategies that we're using is mass media. And here we see, for example, Swiss news at prime time. And each time a cybersecurity news entry is being spread here over this channel, we reach 600,000 watchers, which means 200,000 SMEs, because of this is the fraction of the population which is actually working inside an SME. Secondly, we are not kind of reinventing new structures and try to approach every single individual SME ourselves, but instead we are building on existing structures. So kind of working with friends of SMEs. And such friends of SMEs are, for example, professional associations in order to reach, for example, here the hairdresser with Coiffeur Suisse, respectively SME associations, which may be cross-cutting across industries, and there are other types of such kind of multipliers that are interesting to be used in order to spread the message about something and raise the attention about cybersecurity and potential cybersecurity solutions. We are also trying out kind of even a bit more innovative channels. In particular, we are using vocational training for other professional schools in order to deliver cybersecurity knowledge. And many of you could say, well, for ICT, this is normal. This is a part of the educational curriculum. However, what we're doing is we're taking a share of the educational learning objectives and content and deliver that, for example, to hairdressers. So here you see two example apprentice hairdressers that get exposed during their professional training to cybersecurity at the school. And then something really interesting happens. They go back to their host company and to enter a kind of a reverse mentoring approach. So basically the youngsters telling the bosses what they have learned at school and indicate, look, we should actually do this, and this is actually interesting here, and why didn't we do this kind of thing? And by that, actually establish a new channel to deliver cybersecurity and to build capacity to support also then the cybersecurity improvements in the SMEs. The same thing we are trying out with digital innovation hubs, incubators, and startup ecosystems in order to see whether we can also, through such a channel, reach and support startups, digital startups, for example, as well as other types of startups. And last but not least, we're also following the value chains. So, for example, we could have a telecom provider, we heard 5G before, who are actually serving SMEs as customers. Or in the Geiger project, we are working together with accountancy, who basically every SME or almost every SME is exposed or has to report their tax declarations. So, and the accountants are helping them. And these accountants are actually interested in expanding the service portfolio towards supporting also cybersecurity. So that is also a channel which which we're trying out right now, and which I'm very curious of what kind of impact we can generate in terms of reaching SMEs, as well as giving them on-the-spot support which is understood by the SMEs, because they have already established a working relationship. They talk with each other over a prolonged time, rather than the hairdresser I mentioned before would have huge difficulties and to understand the cybersecurity expert, for example, telling her what should be done. Then in terms of scaling, I mentioned before, the Geiger indicator only works if the necessary sensors are attached to it, and this is where the provider, the cybersecurity technology provider companies come into the play. The platform is designed in a way that any service and tool provider can actually declare sensors, respectively associated recommendations, and if according to sensor value and the total set of recommendations, their recommendation is relevant for that specific end user, well, the recommendation is provided and hopefully with a great likelihood then also adopted. The same thing we do in connection with certs, like for example, Cert Romania and so on. Scaling out, and this is my last slide for the rollout and then the exploitation phase. We are trying out the whole approach in the 3 countries, so Switzerland, Netherlands, and Romania. And we look forward very much to continue or start the dialogue with organizations like the Digital SME Alliance, or very interesting was the label from before, or Small Business Standards, as well as ENISA, as a kind of European-wide organizations that can help actually to matchmake, and if good solutions are provided, enable kind of the connection to the relevant channel. With that, I hope I could give you some insights in how we try to bring cybersecurity technologies from SMEs to SMEs, and by that, hopefully have a positive impact on securing the European community. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Samuel. Really, really interesting also. And I think later on we can put the pieces together, because now we have a very good understanding of the different categories of SMEs, and you're really trying to connect this very practically to the ones that are dependent, to the enablers, and to the digitally based ones. I would like to continue with Thanasis, because he's going to talk about how you can create value chains and establish partnerships. And I think this is actually, it fits in really nicely to what Samuel has been saying, because the partnerships between the companies is really what is crucial as well, and also building networks and connecting through others. So Thanasis, the floor is yours.
Okay, I was muted, sorry. Thank you very much. So actually, it's a very good connection with the previous presentation by Samuel, where basically there was a very good insight on what happens when it comes to the knowledge of the SMEs to the security providers, and what type of security level they want to be able to achieve, and so on and so forth. So what I would like to talk about today is what we are trying to achieve through a project that we are engaged called Puzzle, and basically tries to continue in this direction when it comes to creating value chains and to creating partnerships between SMEs by securing strong trust relationships. So what we mean by that is basically, as it was pointed out in the previous presentation, SMEs actually, they are open to the same type of attacks that big companies or single device or single users, they are open to, but it's also much more difficult for them to be able to identify and understand what security do they need to apply in order to enable the provision of the services they want to provide. And in order to be able to also set up potentially new business cases, they might need to have different type of security requirements, because they might actually include different type of assets, different type of computers, servers, routers, network connections, and this type of things. So it's very, very important to be able to allow SMEs that want to expand, or even smaller SMEs like startups that want to establish now their profile, to be able to have access to security enablers that will allow them to offer services in a secure way. There have been a number of studies showing that one of the most important things, especially in specific directions and categories of SMEs, when it comes to the services they are providing, is indeed the cybersecurity. So it has been shown that, for instance, close to 90% of SMEs that might be a target of a cyber attack, after 6 months, it's very, very difficult from their side to be able to get back on their feet, to be able to set up again the entire infrastructure. And another thing about this, which is rather important, is that for the SMEs, it might be a bit more difficult to understand exactly what type of security services they need to apply, or what type of security services it is more appropriate in their context. And keep in mind there are so many things out there from which to select. And many SMEs, they don't have hands-on expertise, they don't have the knowledge to be able to do this. So this is basically one big challenge if we want to be able to say that we are going to have this strong relationship between SMEs and we are going to allow the SMEs to expand their business portfolio. And what we are providing is essentially a marketplace, an open marketplace that they can provide an automated manner for the SMEs to come, simply define their assets, okay? So what is their services, what are actually the assets, and through the marketplace, we can provide them policies of what is the most appropriate type of security services they need to deploy. And we are also providing access to this type of security services. Security services then can actually be created by us, or we also allow, in the context of this marketplace, from other security vendors to come on board and provide their own artifacts, let's say. Now, the motivation behind this, and going into a bit more details when it comes to the threats, is that we have, again, so many attacks that it's very, very difficult to be able to keep up the pace. Even in big companies that are targeting basically the cybersecurity space, they have also been shown that they have been a victim of a cyber attack. And the other important thing you are seeing here, for instance, a lot of keywords, yes, like virtualization, cloud, IoT, multi-tenancy. So these are keywords, technical keywords, that Europe is actually pushing forward when it comes to how to better technically secure SMEs or bigger enterprises. But it's very, very difficult for a lot of non-technical people to understand what they mean. And these things actually are important in many cases to understand, again, what is the most appropriate thing, service that you want to be able to put in your business, in your SME, in order, for instance, again, to open up a new department. And that's always keep it in the back of your mind that there is not enough knowledge in non-technical people to understand everything when it comes to what is the most appropriate, say, security profile I want to explore. The other thing is the way we are moving forward when it comes to how we are connecting the SMEs between them with other SMEs or internally. So we're not talking anymore about environments where basically you are having like everything as a black box. Okay? So you are having routers or connectors that it's very, very difficult for someone to be able to go and physically tamper. Yes, this is actually a bit of an old news. And the new era, what happens is that it's so open to the types of devices that anyone can connect. Like the most easy example to understand is that everywhere you are going, even again, either an SME or a big company, there is this concept of bring your own device. So the employee itself, they can actually have their own mobile phone. They want to connect within the network of the SME. They want to be able to also run things about the SME from their own devices. Doing this, which again is considered as an essential part of the SME itself, it opens up again a huge vector of threats, which is much more difficult for the SME to understand and even for the security services to be able to protect. And of course, there are a lot of different solutions out there, okay? Again, we're having intrusion detection systems, antivirus, VPNs, but these things require, again, that you know exactly what is the problem. You can actually map the requirements of the business activity that you are focusing and you want to actually put out in your SME. And then based on this, you can actually see what type of services you want to use. So there is this lack of a uniform security marketplace where SMEs can actually go interact with each other when it comes to exchanging knowledge. But again, the most important thing is to provide the SMEs access to an automated manner that they can go simply provide input that they know what are their assets, what are their services they're providing, and then based on this, they can actually then be recommended with the best type of security policies that they can get. And again, security policies and security services, they actually can come from a lot of different types of cybersecurity vendors that they can join this marketplace and they can provide their artifacts. Now, a couple of top security priorities for SMEs based on a couple of studies is detecting misconfiguration, security incidents. So basically, the majority is interested in compliance. So compliance with existing standards when it comes to protecting and detecting existing attacks. And again, this goes not only during design time, but it goes runtime. So whenever the SME is actually running, you want to be able to have always this updated compliance and certified updated compliance that you have access to the best type of security services that are out there. And this is exactly what we are providing, and we are planning to also showcase this and make it open for multiple SMEs to be able to check it. And one of the key, let's say, technical artifacts, without going into a lot of technical details, and this is what the SME wants, is basically they want for the service management to be completely decoupled from the security management. So they know the service manager, yes, it's their own service, but they would like to actually completely give away the security management, and this is essentially what happens through such a marketplace. The orchestration of everything related to security goes outside of the SME itself, and it is provided automatically for them. Of course, there are questions there when it comes to, the SME will then need to trust that the security operation offered by such a marketplace is trustworthy and is correct. But of course, this requires that, yes, we are also having like certified ways of how to provide this type of security services. And the last thing, which is again important, and this actually again is aligned to the previous presentation, is about information sharing and knowledge sharing. This is not only about what type of security services people want to be able to employ, but this goes mainly about if a new type of threat, okay, or if a new type of an incident occurs in one SME, other SMEs of the same type, they will benefit by learning about this. There are many questions, of course, in this context, is that will the SME want to share the knowledge of such an event and so on and so forth, but if you enable the privacy preserving, let's say, or the anonymized presentation of such an event, not for linking this to a specific SME, but for creating this database, yes, this pool, let's say, of threat information that everyone can benefit. And again, this is something that by creating such a marketplace can actually happen. And this will benefit other SMEs that when they will come, and that's the point of creating trust relationships, yes, between SMEs, they will be able to get access to this information, and then they will be able to employ better security services from their side. And that's the overall vision of when we are moving towards the enablement of SMEs to be able to dynamically create new type of services, new type of business cases. It's important to be able to also enable them to change their security profile in an automated manner. Yes, that's the key word here. Don't require a lot of expertise or knowledge from the SMEs. This is not always available. So we help them by doing this for them in a completely autonomous way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thanasis, for this final presentation of our first panel. We have foreseen to take a little coffee break because now with all the online meetings, sometimes you forget to take a coffee break in between such a long meeting. So we want to, put a short coffee break now for 10 minutes, and then we'll go to the second panel to present solutions by different SMEs. And I think after that we can go into a discussion where we will try to connect the dots between what we've learned so far, the different categories of SMEs, how they can have access to the market, but also how they can be reached, how we can increase cybersecurity overall, and how this also connects to the regulatory framework presented by ENISA, and the policy initiatives, of course. So yeah, thank you very much to all the speakers of the first panel. It's been really interesting. I've personally learned a lot, and I really look forward to discussing with you. With this, I would like to go to our 10-minute break, and we'll connect again at 11:25 to have a discussion on the technical aspects of 5G. So thank you very much to everyone, and see you in 10 minutes. aspects of 5G. So we have 4 distinguished speakers with us today. The first speaker will be Vincent Lefebvre. He is president of Targus Solid Shield, and they are providing solutions that protect software against analysis and modification. It uses code virtualization technology, which is based on low-grain modifications and which solves the 3 protection problems. I'm sure Vincent is going to be able to explain this much better than me in these few words. So I'm looking forward to.
Okay.
Yes.
So
to
shall I
hearing
start?
about this part. No, I'm quickly also going to present the other speakers, and then I'm going to hand over to you, Vincent. So the speaker after Vincent is going to be Edgardo Montes de Oca from Monty Image, who has been working for almost 20 years on the development of reliable solutions at Euroware. And with his experience, he founded his company in 2004 to build and offer very innovative cybersecurity and mobile network solutions developed in their laboratories. And then as a third speaker, we'll have Ricardo Vitorino from Ubiware, who is the head of innovation for smart cities, and who has been in this role since 2015, where he aligns the company's strategy with research and innovation projects for the smart cities sector. And then our fourth speaker will be Dr. Vera Stavroulaki, who is a technology developer and co-founder of Wings ICT Solutions. She's an engineer with 20 years of experience, and at Wings, she's in charge of the development of the Starlit solution. So I'm very much looking forward towards this panel, who is really focusing on the SMEs providing solutions. And yeah, I'm also looking forward to the discussion afterwards to understand how we can connect the two, the market access, the regulatory environment and the market environment, and the solutions developed by innovative SMEs. So handing over to Vincent, please.
Yes, so I guess everyone see my screen. So good morning, I'm Vincent Lefebvre, happy to make this presentation to our software security solution to the audience. And I would like to thank both NetworldEurope SME Working Group and Digital SME Alliance for this opportunity. So the presentation is with software trust for software-defined network software code, but not only. So this presentation use analogy with mountain climbing, as you can see, and we will go through the 3 layers brought at development, deployment, and finally the upper part, the when code the code executes. Software quality is what I would dub IC level. Software trust, and it follows some good practices that all developers know. So there is no much new novelty, let's say, techniques on that, but it's more a question of being compliant with some, let's say, good practice. The first of which is to make sure that the code complies with the user expectation, which is, you know, what software of quality is supposed to do. Secondly, I would think that the bugs should be present in a reasonable number. And finally, the software should be easily testable, and testability should be considered from the first line of code. However, we all know that software improves with real use deployments, which reveal bugs, so that provisions should be taken for an easy and secure management of software updates. So software quality is more, it's a dynamic and living, let's say, issues, and it's shall not be viewed as a static one-time, let's say, provision to take. The next step is what I call the authentication camp, and this is taking place at the deployment. This is a highly discussed and relatively complex and highly specified mechanism by SDO, typically, but more generally in the industry, typically for a cloud operation. Authentication comes with various levels of complexity and variance according to what is measured from system code to application code, and the leverage on hardware-based crypto seeds, such as TPM. So it comes with very different, let's say, level of complexity. And what could be eventually considered here is that it can be, this mechanism can be highly simplified if the software can produce the authentication by itself, as we do as systemic, so that there is no dependencies, there is no, let's say, hardware provision to be considered for deployment. On the runtime security, the two main threats shall be considered, which are the modification of the code and the exploitation of found vulnerabilities. Against tampering, there are several techniques which could be leveraged in order to mitigate the modification of the code, typically by the use of debugger and dynamic tracing of the code, and by getting access to the code memory pages. All of these techniques, which are listed here, are always constrained by the performance impact and deployment workflow complexities. So runtime security is always only partially met for this reason. The main reason being, the more you wish to protect, the more the higher the performance impact will be. Against vulnerability exploitation, I would think that the ideal is to make sure that no vulnerability is present on the code. But this is again a timing, a living requirement, as you know, new vulnerabilities are emerging once the code is deployed, obviously. So it's a dynamic requirement, which again impose easy and secure updates. A good simple mitigation is code confidentiality, which precludes to the finding by the attacker of the vulnerabilities. Other techniques such as code self-healing or self-repair or uniquely crafted variants can be viewed as advanced research areas today. With these runtime threats in mind, let us have a first look on what can be offered directly on ready-to-deploy binary through automatic modification. Our systemic solution is a kind of lift, easing the climbing where the original artifact shall be uploaded to our security as a service server, which delivers automatically a protected variant, which is protected against threats as listed below. Code is hardened against tampering, reverse engineering, and license infringement. The deployed software is secured by our solid shield proprietary code virtualization techniques, or as a result of Inspire 5G Plus projects by leveraging hardware Intel SGX. So we reach the conclusion here. While we do not claim to bring 100% security, we claim to bring a very significant step, as can be appreciated with the list of security functions offered by Systemic. A required condition to reach setup automation is a very light performance impact in all conditions. This is a prerequisite, and this is, I would say, the main driver of our solution design. Low impact on performance, and for that, and thereafter, automation setup can be considered. I shall also remind that anyone with access to the binary can use a solution from software developer, but also as their clients, and typically telecom operator. And that's it. And I would like to thank you for your attention, and again to the two organizations which made this opportunity to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent. It's very nice that you made it also very, very visual and concrete. So yeah, I'm looking forward to also discussing this further with you, but I would like to hand over directly to Edgardo Montes de Oca from Monte Image. So Edgardo, please, the floor is yours.
Hello.
Hello.
So do you see my screen, I hope?
We can see your screen and we can hear you.
Okay, so I will make a short presentation on this security for 5G, but I will not cover all the subjects because that's pretty extensive. So I will only talk about CTI, the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and some notions of quantum computing that will impact the security of the networks. So my name is Edgardo Montes de Oca. I am CEO of Montimage, which is a small SME based in Paris. That we're specialized in cybersecurity and monitoring and analytics for analyzing networks and business activities for manufacturing, for instance. So what I present here is a brief preview of 5G security as we're being studied in the Inspire 5G Plus project that was mentioned by Vincent, and then a brief introduction of what we are doing in cyber threat intelligence, and also the use of a concrete example of the use of AI and machine learning for intrusion detection, and then some of the aspects of that we need to consider in the future concerning the introduction of quantum computing. So the Inspire 5G Plus is a project that involves many partners in Europe, including Thales and two operators, Telefonica and Orange, and also several institutes, research institutes and universities. So the main objective of this project, which will end next year, in 1 year, is to assess the 5G security situation and establish an architecture for the security, and also define the enablers that and use cases that are needed, and also develop intelligent and autonomous end-to-end cybersecurity services, and deliver novel mechanisms to manage trust and liability. So if we list the different type of functions and techniques that need to be considered in 5G security, there's a lot. And one aspect that needs to be considered is the RAN, the radio access network, and also the core, and also the mobile edge networks, and the vertical, the requirements from the verticals, but also the fact that the future architectures or the architectures that are being used in 5G and will be used in 6G involve multi-tenants, multi-domains, and multi-providers. So all these aspects have to be considered. So here I will only discuss a little bit about cyber threat intelligence, AI, and quantum computing. But you also have to consider all these aspects, which include zero-touch network and service management, which is abbreviated ZSM, and also a trusted execution environment that was presented by Vincent, and liability models and trust models and root cause analysis, and the management and operation of security, and also how to integrate mobile edge computing and the virtualization of the network functions, and also defining software-defined networks to be able to more flexibly control the very dynamic networks that involve slices, service isolation, etc. So there's a lot of subjects that need to be covered with respect to security. So the main architecture that we're proposing in the Inspire 5G Plus project is following the principles of ETSI, the Zero Touch Network and Service Management reference architecture, that implies considering the end-to-end service management domain, but also the domain in each domain, the security management domain of each domain. By domain, I mean, for instance, a radio access network, mobile edge, and core, network core functionality, etc. And then this is integrated through integration fabric. Or in the project, we're not developing really the integration fabric. We're more concentrating on the enablers. In the integration fabric we're using is some message bus like Kafka to be able to communicate between each enabler, and to be able to integrate the enablers so that they function together to make a closed loop control of security in the network. So the cyber threat intelligence, concerning cyber threat intelligence, so it involves using open source intelligence, which can be obtained from different sources, and also intelligence that can be captured by honeypots and darknet data. By honeypots, it's applications or servers that are deployed that will capture malicious traffic, because they are not announced, so that persons or machines trying to connect to these servers normally are malicious. And then darknet data, which actually is concerns a network telescope, which captures all the back emissions, packet emissions that are produced by malicious activity, like denial of services, scanning, and things like that. So all this information is very important to be able to determine what are the attack campaigns that are occurring, and where are they coming from. Of course, it's sometimes very difficult to determine if they are coming from infected machines, or if they're coming from command and control servers. So this requires a lot of studying. And then another aspect that needs to be is important in cyber threat intelligence is sharing of the information between the operators or the SMEs that need to protect their networks. And the CTI sharing can use, for instance, formalism like sticks that allow to process the shared information by tools. And then finally, another aspect that can be considered is routing anomalies, which I will give an example. So concerning the detecting the router anomalies, for instance, using BGP announcements and trace routes. BGP announcements are the announcements that are made by the different nodes and the networks to be able to inform the other nodes who they are connected to, so that the packets can be routed. And trace route allows the determining the routes of the packets. Of course, this implies that the nodes need to respond to trace route requests. So not all nodes do that, so that you have to complete this information using, for instance, machine learning or other techniques. So, and using this information, one can detect, for instance, that packets go from going from Switzerland to Portugal, go through United States, things like that. So this information can be interesting to be able to detect the hijacking of the routings. And then another aspect is also use a BGP announcement to detect anomalies in the anonymous systems. So from the BGSPM announcement, you can construct a topology, and using different features, extractions, you can measure the behavior that's going on in these nodes. And using machine learning technique like support vector machine, one can determine when there's a peak or a change in the behavior, and determine if this is regular or not. Right. Whatever. So concerning the use of AI and machine learning for intrusion detection, are the main issue that we're concerned with today is that most of the traffic in 5G is encrypted. So it's very hard to use techniques like deep packet inspection that can explore even the payload of the traffic. So we have to use more statistical or machine learning techniques to be able to classify this traffic. Even though the initial communications that are to establish the sessions or connections can also serve to detect malicious activity. So this can be done without analyzing the encryption, but to be able to understand what's really happening at a deeper level, we need to classify the traffic and analyze the behavior to be able to differentiate normal and anomalous traffic. And some of the problems that this type of techniques involve are the large false positive rates, the true negative rate, and the performance, because the machine learning will have a certain costs, and some of the machine learning techniques will produce a lot of false positive, making it difficult to process. So the task that we need to do is extracting and calculating features directly from the flow captured, and then doing the behavior analysis on the communications at the packet or in the flow level, using statistics and machine learning, and normally using different detection techniques, we will obtain a higher precision. So for future extraction, there's several types of features that can be extracted, which are statistical, which is more and less intrusive and more easy to calculate. So this can help analyze the trends in the communications. And then there's a graph-based feature which I presented before concerning the topology of the communications. And this is also very useful, but sometimes involves a lot of calculations, so it might be costly. And then there's time series based features, which concerns the transmission of the packets in time. So this is good for anomaly detection, but it also has a certain cost. And then to obtain the advantage of these different features, an hybrid solution is required. So the possible features concerning the time series analysis will be, for instance, the packet length, the packet counts, the interpacket delays, etc. So all this information can be used. So the techniques to train the anomaly detection models can be supervised, which uses labeled data of normal and abnormal traffic. So there are several techniques that I won't go into. But this is progress with respect to signature-based detections, but it still it doesn't detect zero-day attacks, and also needs to label data for continuous training. And then we have unsupervised, which organize the data into clusters. So the unsupervised does not need to be trained with anomalous traffic, but can be trained with only normal traffic, and then be able to identify when there's abnormal traffic. And then we have a combination of the two, which is called semi-supervised learning, where we use the normal traffic for training and then testing data with normal and anomalous network traffic. So as an example, I will introduce what we're doing in the deep learning model of stacked autoencoders. So this is an unsupervised machine learning technique, which trains the network traffic, trains the model with the network traffic patterns, normal network traffic patterns, and then calculates an error signifying how different the flow is from the normal learned traffic. And this allows detecting unidentified attacks without any prior knowledge and does not require the label attack dataset, which is often difficult to obtain. So there's two phases. One is the training, where we have normal traffic, and then we train the model using the different encoders and decoders. So the encoders will reduce the dimensionality of the problem, and then the decoders will reproduce the representation of the original traffic, and this can be used to be able to identify the difference with anomalous traffic. So but this has to be finely tuned because the number of layers and nodes will depend on if there's the results. So there can be an overfitting or underfitting, and this will imply the results are not significant enough to be able to detect anomalies. And then during the operation, we can use this model and compare it and redo the encoding and decoding to be able to have the same representation that can be compared with the training model, and there we can determine the errors, the differences. So there's many other AI machine learning techniques. So there's, for instance, long short-term memory, which is interesting because it will take in consideration the ordering of the packets or the timing. So this can be help determining attacks that can be identified by analyzing the time series of the data. And then there's, for instance, generative adversarial networks, or these are two neural networks that will go against one another. And so this will allow detecting attacks, but also generate new attacks for training and testing of the security functions and algorithms. So it has it's very useful to be able to validate and the algorithm used for the security detection. And it can be used for unsupervised, semi-supervised, or supervised and reinforcement learning. And finally, there's a combination of different techniques. For instance, long short-term memory with autoencoders, and generative adversarial network with autoencoders, and long short-term memory, to be able to combine these techniques and profit from the different aspects. So there's other uses of AI, which I won't go into. For instance, risk assessment, root cause analysis, closed loop detection, reaction mitigation, and then to be able to manage the reactions and mitigation. And then there's deception techniques against AI-based attacks. For instance, honeypots dedicated for detecting AI-based attacks by changing the applications that are being deployed on the honeypots so that the attackers will learn incorrectly how to do the attacks, and this can help to detect them. And then there's also AI-based adaptive and moving target defense to obtain the resiliency by design. But then there's more. And finally, I will just give a brief ideas of concerning quantum computing that will need to be taken into account. And the main reason is because there's a big threat that will eventually arise because the quantum computing will allow breaking classical cryptographic systems. So there's been a lot of study to determine which cryptographic systems will resist quantum computing. which we call post-quantum encryption. So the asymmetric cryptography is very vulnerable because as shown in the Shor algorithm, the integer factor, which the district cryptography depends a lot on integer factorization, discrete logarithm, and elliptic curve discrete logarithm problem solving. And the Shor algorithm has shown that this is vulnerable for using quantum computing processing. And then there's the symmetric encryption. The Gover algorithm shows that this depends on the key size. So normally by making the key, multiplying the key by 2, it will resist more than the asymmetric cryptography. But then we don't know until when, because always a new algorithm might be able to break this encryption unit if the key is higher, larger. So, but also quantum computing and quantum networking bring some very good opportunities for the security. So the quantum information theory is an abstract vision of how what is provided by the quantum networking and computing. So concerning security and privacy, the channel capacity, by channel, I mean the amount of information we can be transmitted over quantum channels, can provide the classical quantum private entanglement, etc. But there's still the problems, a lot of problems that need to be solved. For instance, correcting errors, purifying the entanglement, and creating quantum repeaters, because the transmission of quantum particles has to be it cannot be very long, and then also a quantum memory. So, but today a lot of work is being done, and a lot of results have been obtained for quantum random number generators and data encoded in quantum states, which normally prevents eavesdropping, and also quantum key distribution, which is a key research topic, where unfortunately symmetric crypto systems using QKD are not scalable, because you have to create a key for every peer-to-peer communication. So another aspect that has been studied is the 3-stage quantum cryptography protocol, which is fully quantum, where one user will send some secrets with a lock to another user. The other user will add his lock and then send back to Alice, and then Alice will remove her lock and send back the secret with the lock of the final user. So this is a way of communicating that could be interesting in the future. So we have what we can call near-term quantum.
I just wanted to mention, because we're already quite far out. Okay, you're almost finished. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I almost finished. So we have two aspects: the near-term quantum cryptography applications, where the QKD is important, and then we have a longer term, because not all the problems have been solved yet. But I think that in 10 years we will have a quantum processing units that will complement the classical processing units. Okay, thank you. So that's all for today for me. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Really, really interesting. I'm sure I did not understand the majority, but
sorry,
it is really interesting that you. No, it was very nice, and also yeah, and we're gonna try in the Q&A afterwards also to link this to more of the sort of market and regulatory environment that is there. So yeah, but with this, I would like to hand over to Ricardo from UbiWare, please.
Hello, good morning. Thank you once again for this opportunity. Let me just share the screen, which I hope you can see now. So thanks for the introduction. And my name is Ricardo Vitorino. I work at UbiWare. as head of innovation for smart cities, as introduced before. So UbiWare is a Portuguese SME, but focused on software development that really leverages on research and development to focus on new technologies that enable, such as AI, 5G, and other concepts, to support the strategic areas of commercialization on smart cities, so helping cities in the process of digitalization, making them more sustainable and leveraging on data to make decisions and become, in fact, more sustainable and smart. But this also requires our other strategic area of telecom and future internet, where we rely on and enable telecommunication connectivity for the future of networks and enabling proper quality of service and quality of experience. At the moment, we have been working with a lot of cities all across the world, and we have solutions available in more than 60 cities. And when working with them, we've basically understood that the main issue of a city and the public authority is how to manage the whole ecosystem, right? Because you have people moving around, you have people, even within a pandemic, you have people going to their work, you want people to visit other cities, you have logistics operators distributing food, they take parking, they impact the air quality and noise. So all of these domains that need to be assessed, if they are analyzed individually from the street up to the cloud solutions and for digital tools, it becomes very challenging. And in order not to create silos, we have been working on this approach of making the city an organic system by comparing it with our own nervous system. So as our body reacts to different sensing capabilities from different organs, and in fact, the nervous system is responsible for transmitting the signals from different parts of the body to efficiently coordinate our actions and other animals as well. We do this analysis as well with the smart city, where we have the central nervous system capable of making decisions and aggregating all the information, and we have the edge part, the peripheral nervous system, which is able to react more effectively and respond to certain stimulus that comes from IoT devices, from sources of data that are monitoring the environment, the transportation, and the energy efficiency. So on the one hand, when we think of the central nervous system, we are providing central platforms, cloud platforms for smart cities, which the product actually is called Urban Platform, where all the data is aggregated and decision makers can understand, just like when you consider a digital twin of what's happening in the street, you can get all of this data. And with AI, you can forecast what will happen, you can simulate scenarios, you can do a lot of processing of the information, and you can actually have the real-time status of the city. So you can interact with these dashboards that are customizable, that are user-friendly, that really take usability into account to respond to what's happening. So seeing what's the current traffic, what's its impact on the environment, and what emissions is it causing? Is it being caused by the lack of parking? Is there an occurrence, an incident on the road that's causing this? So how to support the mobility, how to support to reduce the emissions, how to have digital tools and intelligent algorithms to support the route planning, and having other sort of specific AI that perform computer vision algorithms based on convolutional neural networks or natural language processing. In fact, doing recommendations for decision makers to become more efficient and improve their operations, reducing costs, reducing time, and improving people's quality of life. This in a very nutshell. But yet again, we have the peripheral nervous system, right? So all of this information comes from the street, where we are moving around, where we are plugging our cars, where we are using our smartphones and interacting with other vehicles, other street furniture. And that's where we believe 5G can take a real good place, where this connectivity and this information can be effectively collected and analyzed with edge computing, with connectivity within street furniture. And when we think of street lighting, for instance, when you see smart lampposts actually deployed all across the streets and providing you light when it's dark and the weather conditions are not that great, that seamless street furniture can provide much more. So you can leverage on the connectivity and the ubiquity of this street furniture, and we are considering lampposts, but this can be applied to other settings like bus stops and kiosks and other street furniture available, and we can provide different connectivity, not only to enable the edge computing, the artificial intelligence to really be distributed and closer to the source, but also enabling new business models and enabling this infrastructure owner to explore novel capabilities and novel models, such as for EV charging, or becoming a neutral host for telecom operators or content distributors, and supporting edge computing really at the edge, really closer to the smartphones and user equipments, and closer to the sources where we as citizens and tourists and travelers move around and provide and use data. And all of this is made possible. So these are our products that the company has been exploiting, and our motto is to go from idea to product, and all of this is made possible thanks to R&D projects funded by the Horizon 2020 program and other funding programs. And our idea is to really exploit the outcomes. So we've seen Vincent talk about the trusted execution environment. That's some of the things we are exploiting in a project called 5G Zoho, and that we aim to exploit in this street furniture to enable that the concept really is data is protected. But there are other scenarios that we are exploiting, and one of them, for instance, that I brought here is called Fog Protect. So it's an H2020 project that is working on the computing continuum. So when you think of all of this data flowing from our sources, so from devices, from smartphones, from IoT sensing up to the cloud, you see that it goes through different equipment and different infrastructure. So there is a possibility of collecting personal data, which should be collected with consent. But yet again, there are potential data breaches throughout this continuum. So involving the whole value chain that complies with GDPR, but also the whole value chain from the edge up to the cloud. And Fog Protect is creating open source and different modules to support data protection. So it's a different flavor. It's not particularly focused on cybersecurity, but actually protection of data. And our use case exploits exactly the smart city approach, where you can have CCTV equipment monitoring the streets, looking at parking areas, trying to detect traffic. But while doing this, they are collecting privacy data like license plates and detecting people. So here you see an example of our headquarters in Aveiro, which I encourage you to visit anytime soon. And this was this Tuesday when myself drove my car to the office. And when we approach the office going through the garden, you'll see that our faces are being anonymized. So you see that the camera that's deployed at UbiWare's headquarters is connected to an edge computing unit, and this edge computing unit is anonymizing through convolutional neural networks the private data that's being collected, and only sending to the cloud KPIs and this blurred information. So without pushing my license plate or my identification. So this is one approach that we see for smart cities, that having computer vision can really improve the efficiency and collect more data in an efficient way and more sustainable. But yet again, we need to comply with the privacy of data and ensuring that people are not being monitored just for the sake of it, or being concerned with their own privacy. So we can comply with best practices from EU regulations. We can follow best practices from the open source community and develop solutions for smart cities that, thanks to EU funding, really make a case and enable new business models. So we are looking forward to having this sort of connectivity and analysis made available on street furniture like the lampposts and kiosks, and making this data available in the urban platform as the nervous system to analyze that, okay, we have this parking area full, but we don't care about the individual license plates. If there's an occurrence, then a policymaker can try to understand who was involved, but yet again, different policies, different stakeholders. And this is our approach. We have a lot of things ongoing for the telecom and smart cities area, but this is the sort of ideas we have, bringing R&D to the market, creating new products, creating new features that make our lives easier, our lives more sustainable, and helping both the smart cities and the telecom area to improve and make Europe stand out. I think I've overrun a little bit the time. I'm sorry for that, but if you want to know more, feel free to reach me by email or at innovation@ubiware.com, and feel free to visit our website and actually get to know more about Fog Protect as one of the examples. Thank you so much once again for this opportunity. I hope it matched the expectations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, really interesting. And yeah, it's great to see all these at the policy level. You know, we often talk about smart cities. We often talk about how can you protect data and privacy, but you're really providing the solutions that make this happen in reality. So it's very good to see the actual yeah, the way this works in technical terms. And yeah, I look forward to discussing this a bit further, but I think as we've said, we want to focus first on having the presentations and then go to a little discussion. So I'd like to hand over to Dr. Vera Starovlaki now.
Yes, hello also from my side. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen, and I hope that you can hear me okay.
Everything's great.
Great, thank you. So briefly before I start, I just want to introduce quickly Wings ICT Solutions. So Wings ICT Solutions is an SME based in Athens in Greece, and we develop digital solutions, both software and hardware, for various vertical sectors. So basically we exploit different technologies ranging from wireless communication technologies from 3G to beyond 5G and Wi-Fi, IoT, cloud and big data platforms, and more recently also blockchain technologies. As I said, we target various vertical sectors such as the environment. So for example, we are developing and deploying solutions for air quality monitoring, utility infrastructures management such as water infrastructure or energy infrastructure management and monitoring, food safety, and different service sectors. The overall goal, let's say, is to develop different solutions, sustainable solutions for smart digital cities. Now, okay, I will proceed more with the vision, let's say, and the approach that we use specifically in the EU-funded dedicated 6G project, where I am the coordinator. 5G networks offer unparalleled data rates and features. However, these are still far from what we imagine that a hyper-connected society and industry needs. So future wireless connectivity beyond 5G or 6G will require a smart and green platform that is ultra-fast, highly adaptive and secure to support all these innovative human-centric applications that we are envisaging. And this is exactly the focus of the dedicated 6G project. As we can see here, there are 4 key challenges that dedicated 6G aims to address. The first one is related to reducing energy consumption. So one of the primary visions associated with 5G and 6G is the vision of a green network. And while already a lot of things towards energy efficiency have taken shape in 5G, it is still expected that with 6G there will be further progress towards a truly green network coming into existence. The next challenge is digital inclusion. Already at 3G or beyond 3G times, there was the motto always online, always connected. And while this is true for many more people nowadays, it does still not apply to all. So it is important to ensure that equal opportunity is offered to all, regardless of location, and that also service continuity is supported, also in areas that are remote or difficult to reach, either due to geomorphology or due to other causes, for example, because of a natural disaster or any damages imposed to the infrastructure. As we have seen also in the time of this pandemic, connectivity has become even more important, allowing a lot of us to work remotely or allowing also families and friends to keep in touch during lockdowns. Then there is the aspect of human in the loop. So 6G is expected to offer more human-in-the-loop services with highly personalized and substantially improved user experience. So we envisage human-centric applications with virtual reality and immersive experiences to be central. New functionality, both in terms of software and hardware solutions, are expected to emerge for sensing and detecting novel dimensions of human experience. So to successfully employ such services and applications, the network must be aware not only of the quality of service of applications, but also of the perception of the human users on this quality of service, the so-called quality of experience. And last but not least is, of course, security, privacy, and trust. Even when we think about the more traditional networks, there are never-ending security threats, of course, but the openness and pervasiveness of Internet of Things and human-centric applications introduce even more additional vulnerabilities that make security even more challenging. So in this context, the key issue includes the secure and trusted exchange of information, and also the orchestration of decision-making logic between different collaborating edge devices, cloud and fog computing components, network devices, and infrastructure elements. So to address these challenges, Dedicat 6G is working, first of all, towards mechanisms and tools for what we call dynamic migratable distribution of intelligence and computation. This is mainly trying to address this reduced energy and resource consumption, while also providing close to imperceptible end-to-end latency and response time in beyond 5G and 6G networks. This includes, for example, solutions for exploiting cloud, fog, cloudlets, and diverse edge devices for collaborative computation, storage, caching, offloading, and also supporting the mobility of edge devices via dynamic and predictive migration of edge computation, efficient routing, and allocation of radio resources. Another goal is the design and development of mechanisms for the dynamic coverage and connectivity extension by exploiting devices such as drones, robots, connected cars, or also other mobile assets like forklifts in a warehouse and so on. This aims to address the challenge for digital inclusion. So the goal is to enable covering areas that for whatever reason cannot be easily reached, or where infrastructure or additional capacity in the network is required only for a short amount of time, temporarily, either because of an event occurring or where regular network infrastructure has been damaged, for example, due to a flood or some other natural disaster and so on. This will be combined with the mechanisms for dynamic distributed intelligence. Then, of course, we also aim to develop, mainly in the scope of our use cases, human-centric applications to showcase novel interactions between humans and digital systems, utilizing AR and VR equipment, smart glasses, connected cars, and robots. And finally, Dedicat 6G aims to reinforce security, privacy, and trust to support enhanced IoT and human-centric applications by integrating and deploying an advanced AI-based security and privacy protection framework in conjunction with a blockchain-based trust management platform. So basically, we are trying to combine an approach for federated learning with this trust platform. So federated learning will be developed for training machine learning models capable of detecting and classifying various security threats in communication and computation networks. And this will be also combined with security and data protection framework for attribute-based access control and authorization of devices, services, and users. The trust management platform will be based on a private permission blockchain. And we also plan to implement a collection of smart contract templates to facilitate trusted exchange of information and commands between the different nodes and systems participating in these also ad hoc opportunistic communication networks that we will have, especially as part of the dynamic coverage extension mechanism. So this trust platform will include consensus mechanisms and a set of rules indicating who, when, what, and under which conditions can read or write to the immutable record. And we also plan to implement different trust metrics such as device, communication, behavior, context, potentially also some more composite ones, and combine these for assessing different levels of trustworthiness at device, service, and data flow level. These solutions will be demonstrated and validated in a series of proof of concept pilots, which include smart warehousing, enhanced experience, public safety, and smart highway. So this was it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm ready to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Also really interesting and hands-on, and thank you for including some of the use cases as well at the end. I would now like to ask everyone to come back, to turn on their cameras, so we can have a short discussion about yeah, the different solutions, but also go back a little bit to the discussion in the first panel. So also the panelists from the first panel, please connect if you didn't have to leave yet. I know that Goran had to leave, unfortunately, but I can see we're still here with a couple of people, so this is great. I would like to start with a very sort of simple, or well, connecting the first panel and the second one. And I've been wondering how some of the technical complexities that SMEs face when providing their solutions, but also when achieving security requirements, how they connect to what has been presented in the first panel. So when we think about the cybersecurity, the schemes that are developed by ENISA, when it comes to 5G, for instance, how do you actually, so the companies that are present from the second panel, how do you actually get involved in that? Are you fully up to date on what is happening at the EU level, what ENISA is proposing? How do you see these, well, the 5G toolbox, but also the cybersecurity schemes that are coming out of this? So the question is going to, well, maybe I can start with Vincent, if that's fine for Vincent, but I think it will also, I would be also interested in hearing what the other speakers think about that. So Vera and Ricardo and Edgardo, but maybe if Vincent is fine with that, you can go first.
Well, to be honest, there is a lot to improve on my side for the knowledge towards what ENISA and EXO is doing. I found it very interesting this morning, the presentation they made, but it leaves me in a position to improve, and I've got a serious margin of improvement to this respect.
That is totally fine. I think it's always good to know, you know, that because you're really a company developing solutions on the ground, and of course what ENISA is trying to do is to develop schemes for the EU level that apply to all companies. But yeah, it's always nice or good to hear if that they're not good to hear. It's actually sometimes a bit frightening to hear that there is still a little bit of a gap. That you may not be up to date with this information, but let's hear what the others are saying. If we have maybe Vera who may want to comment on that.
Yeah, so I think there is definitely a lot of information, so it can be challenging to keep up sometimes. Personally, I find that it does help a lot to really through these involvements in the European projects, in participating in workshops such as the ones as today. And I find it very useful to find, the first sources of information through which you can then go on searching what applies more to you. So for me, it's really this network of partners through the SME working groups, through the European projects, and through events such as this, where you can find the first seeds of information and then follow up for yourself. It is a challenge because there are many frameworks and solutions out there.
Okay. No, thank you for this practical feedback, Vera. I see Ricardo wants to take the floor as well.
No, I fully agree with Vera. I think that the session presented today was very helpful. And this sort of roundtable where you showcase what you have been researching, you see others' priorities, you do this sort of matchmaking, and then entities can follow up, are useful even for small businesses who need to make money and pay their employees. And it's hard for us to follow all the things because we are part of certain associations and research public-private partnerships on big data, artificial intelligence, 5G. So on our strategic areas, we try to follow, and sometimes these entities like ENISE have opportunities for us on specific tasks, for some specific work items where we can help. We are contributing to ETSI standards. We are contributing to Alliance on Internet of Things Innovation. We are active in these groups. But at the moment, we haven't contributed to ENISE, but I look forward to know more and see how we can leverage on the ongoing projects and outcomes that we are researching, but actually learn from other stakeholders, because that's the added value for SMEs, is to actually learn from best practices, and not only best practices, but what went wrong and what didn't work, and how can we evolve from there? How can we upgrade or improve the process? So that's the sort of experience. Not all everything goes well and all projects are successful. Actually sharing some pain points and challenges that, okay, we went through that pathway and didn't work, so we recommend going to another. And that's really valuable feedback for startups, for SMEs that do that all the time. So the startups are failing and creating going into errors every time. So I think this shared experience is a very, very valuable knowledge and feedback.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. This is also very useful feedback for our own working group on cybersecurity. Fabio, our chair, has been presenting in the beginning what we do, but indeed we try to cover different aspects. So on the one hand, we try to improve this connection between SMEs and the regulatory side. So SMEs will actually understand what is coming from the European Commission, but also the agency responsible for cybersecurity, so ENISA. But then we also want to help SMEs connect across Europe, so to exchange on yeah, indeed, what works for them and what didn't work for them, to improve the networking and information exchange. And I think for us, it's really useful to hear that this is something that is interesting for SMEs. And because we're also, of course, trying to improve this exchange among SMEs. So you're all also very welcome to join this initiative on our side, the Working Group Cyber, to support it and to enhance this exchange. I don't know if Edgardo also wanted to comment on the question on this, on the work of ENISA on the 5G toolbox and the schemes that are being developed here.
Yes, but we're pretty much involved with ENISA because I'm part of the working group, ad hoc working group that will start soon on enterprise security. And also we're involved in several of the projects that were presented, so that we're very much implicated. And concerning the Made in Europe label, I applied to that, but I didn't get an answer since several months. So I'm wondering if I have to contact somebody else.
That is a very good point, and I think that was also going to be my next question. To what extent people knew already about the label, and to what extent this is interesting for you? So maybe, yeah, maybe Milda, if you want to jump in.
I also think that one suggestion would be to uniformize the cost, because each country has its own politics. I think it should be more uniform.
Okay, thank you, Edgardo, for the suggestions. So regarding your application, if you have any troubles, I think feel free to contact me, because usually, so the companies, as I said in my presentation, they have the right to apply to any issuer as they wish, as it's European label. But if you had issues in contacting our qualified issuers, so feel free to contact Axel, and we will help you with that to kind of solve any communication challenges. Regarding the pricing, indeed, so we leave the freedom to our partners to decide a bit also based on the administrative costs they experience. So I think the average it's kind of the same among different partners, with like a slight differences. But of course, we leave some freedom for them. Regarding I also just would like to make a point on this kind of importance of kind of cooperation between the different bodies that deals with, let's say, cybersecurity and other digitalization issues in Europe. So, for example, from EXO perspective, let's say when it comes to the label, we have so we think that this label, which targets the companies, not products or services they provide, as it does in certification activities, we think that it really well complements what ENISA is doing with their certification schemes. And even, let's say, at EXO, we have a specific working group which deals with certification and cooperates closely with ENISA. However, I think that our label also kind of complements these efforts in establishing and strengthening European cybersecurity ecosystem and helping companies. So it's just, let's say, it's another side of the same coin. But I think that's important also to help SMEs to kind of to facilitate their life a bit and present them with all the available solutions. It's important that different bodies and organizations kind of cooperate and promote each other's activities, and this is how we establish kind of some uniformity and the same flow of information.
Yes, and I think EXO is also doing excellent work on that. So yeah, it's good to bring everyone together. But as we learned also from Samuel in the presentation, we have so many SMEs, close to 25 million, and then out of them 1.2 million, around 1.2 million are actually ICT SMEs, so providing ICT solutions. But to reach all of these companies is of course a challenge, because they are connected in different ways in their local ecosystems. But I think we're getting by having analysis like the one provided by Samuel, we're getting closer to understanding how the market works and how we can support the different parts of the ecosystem. I wanted to ask a little bit, get a little bit more into this topic, really about the more focusing on the market access and how your businesses are doing actually, because you're developing all these really interesting solutions, and I'm just curious to what extent you have challenges when you try to bring your solutions to the market. Perhaps also when it goes to internationalizing, going international. As Milda explained, a lot of companies seem to have issues with that, like a lot of really innovative cybersecurity solutions that came out of Europe have been actually bought up by, in those cases, I think by US companies. So I'm just curious how you see, what's your look at the market, if you're happy with how you can do business in Europe, or if you see any challenges here and what you may see as potential solutions. So yeah, I think maybe we can start with Vera, if that's okay, if you have a comment on that. And then
Yeah, I mean, it is it is definitely not an easy thing to get the solutions on the market. It depends a bit also on the, at least from our experience, it depends a bit on the vertical sector as well. So some solutions, yeah, for example, if I think about smart parking or air quality monitoring, it's a less challenging field than smart health, for example, and this is related also to the security and privacy challenges in a sense. Okay, for the moment we are focusing more on the Greek market. So even though we are very active in European research projects for our products, we focus more on the Greek market, at least with some of the sectors. I don't think from my experience it has so much to do necessarily with the solutions, if I can put it like this, or with the technical part. It's more really about getting a foot into the market, convincing sometimes stakeholders that these innovative solutions are necessary and so on. So I think it's, for me at least personally, more of a commercial challenge, if I can put it like that, rather than a technical one.
Thank you. And maybe to understand, so is there a particular reason why you're focusing on Greece only? I mean, your company is based in Greece, but yeah, is there any particular hurdle when it comes to going to other places?
No, it was, let's say, a decision to, so because what we try to do is that we try to mature a lot of the things that we also do in different EU research projects. So we try to mature different solutions, and then from an exploitation point of view, to get faster to the market, it is easier to first start in Greece, just from also a geography point of view, let's say, because you do still need a lot of sitting down with people and so on, and it's easier to network in a sense for that in your own country. This does not exclude, of course, going abroad, but it was a strategical decision to first start becoming stronger within Greece and then expanding to other countries as well.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to comment on these points?
I can comment. Yeah, we have also the same problem with the commercialization, because we're very research and development oriented, and we don't have a big commercialization team. So, and we also find it difficult selling our products, even if they're innovative, to big players. One of the reasons is that they usually, concerning security, they usually just look at the most sold players, or using Gartner, for instance, the classification, and they choose that, and they don't worry about anything else, and they have difficulty in understanding the technical innovations, and so we have this type of problem.
Yeah, I think, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much aligned with both Vera and Edgardo. I think it's more a problem of commercialization when you are dealing with, let's say, deep tech, advanced technology, and you are more or less breaking some kind of paradigm in the that you need to get through the board or the table. So I would think that in this respect, obviously, if we could have some means to, let's say, be closer to the standardization office, but also to the people that are making the regulation or the guidance, by having the ability to demonstrate our product, on some kind of presentation booth, for innovation, that would be a great help. Another point I would like to raise is that as a software vendor, we are not immune against bugs ourselves. And the fact that our solution could be eventually on the real case used by potential users would also eliminate some risk of associated to the quality of the final solution. Because if you want to get on the market, you need to really have a product that is totally clear regarding, its quality and bug. Your first customer, they would like to get. They don't care that you are, I would say, a small company. They are expecting the same kind of quality, as or a major solution. So I think it's quite important for us to debug, have the ability to debug, make sure that our solution are fully meeting the customer expectation, and that probably would require some kind of free, I would say, trial or demonstration stuff somewhere. It can be at EXO, it can be, I don't know exactly where, but that would help.
Thank you so much, Vincent. Yes, I'm going to hand over to Samuel. Samuel, also maybe just because I found this point very interesting also that Vincent just mentioned, these debug possibilities. I don't know to what extent in Geiger you may have such options, but I was just thinking about, the future digital innovation hubs where they are considering how to help very innovative SMEs. So maybe that is something to consider for these kind of innovation hubs in the future. But maybe Samuel, sorry, I didn't want to put something else on you. So please go ahead.
Yeah, I also wanted to start to share our difficulties in reaching and motivating SMEs. So this is by far not easy. Each individual SME is an individual SME that you have to win and then to convince actually to use cybersecurity, to adopt the technology. And you have seen that even within such an innovation project, in order to reach SMEs and have some representatives of the European landscape, we are exploring a diversity of channels, a diversity of strategies in order to find out which ones are actually really working well. And the problem is at the level when you talk with an individual SME, well, the SME is asking you, well, what is the bottom line for my business when we talk about cybersecurity? Why should I worry? Why not? And it's a substantial undertaking to convince the respective SME. However, at the level of SME associations, for example, it's the other way around. At the level of SME associations, we experience that the answer is yes, cybersecurity is the next pandemic after the COVID pandemic again. And as such, it's relatively easy to engage at that level on the topic of cybersecurity. So I think what would be very useful as a kind of an enabler, easing the approach, the community building on the customer side or the user side, would be kind of something like a radar. This association has these meetings there, this association, those meetings there with the respective target group profiles, so that you can immediately jump on existing structures and start interacting actually with the eventual target group. So if something like such a radar of what is ongoing in terms of community activities among SMEs would be available, that would be, I believe, a great support. I have captured your question, your second question that you mentioned before regarding debugging. I didn't fully understand what the question was.
So my question was, I'm not sure to what extent Geiger is perhaps offering such a possibility. Maybe it's going beyond the project, but from what I understand from what Vincent was saying, it's really important for the innovative cybersecurity developing SMEs to be able to have a testing environment or an opportunity to debug their solutions before they go to the market. And you know how the digital innovation hubs are thinking about what they can offer for the very innovative companies. So maybe maybe that is something to think about, if it would actually help the commercialization stage later on.
Yeah, early builds, early build users.
We are positioning Geiger as a platform, as a channel to reach SMEs, and already during summer next year we have planned, for example, a connectathon in conjunction with already SME end user community, where such experimentation, for example, can be performed. I mean, that's not code level debugging, but this is more debugging on the conceptual level and checking actually of whether there is acceptance, which actually could be of relevance there. So if we're actually looking forward very much to involving technology providing SMEs in this connectathon in conjunction with this end user meeting. And we would like to learn our lessons in that environment and then maybe explore this direction. So definitely that could be actually interesting.
May I ask you a question, Annika? Would that be possible? Because apparently the cybersecurity policies are more or less driven by ENISA and EXO in certain extent. Would that be? I just don't know whether we would have the opportunity to just make very short presentation to these people in order that they get aware and acquainted to our last, let's say, developments and what could be brought by the market. Typically what you are doing here, can we do that at these entities?
I think it's...
Are you the one that should be viewed as a focal point where ENISA and EXO and other bodies would like to join?
So ENISA, because they're the agency responsible for cybersecurity, and they're developing, well, more the sort of guidelines and the certification schemes that will be rolled out throughout the European Union based on the Cybersecurity Act. The way to get involved there is rather through these working groups that Edgardo was mentioning before, where they gather experts, including SME experts, to actually develop the basis for the certification schemes. So in a way, that is a good opportunity for companies to get involved, because those schemes will ideally allow user SMEs to understand, or the customers to understand better if they're also purchasing a secure solution in the end. So if you follow the scheme, then you can reach a certain level of security, well, conformity or something. I think Edgardo can probably explain better. But this is for ENISA. The working groups would be the way to go there. But you can contact us, so I can explain a little bit more how this works, how you can potentially get involved. And when it comes to EXO, I'm going to hand over to Milda, because she can probably explain better. But what I find really interesting in terms of what they do is they also offer, like, some of the innovators the opportunity to get more visible, to receive even investment, etc. So Milda, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Annika. So coming back to the question raised by Vincent. Exactly. So at EXO, we have even dedicated working group who is dealing with the SMEs and startups, and we are not like discussing the policies, but also coming with the concrete solutions or initiatives which helps European companies to kind of get more visibility on the market, get access to finances and market opportunities. Sorry. So one of the initiatives was this label which I have presented, and also kind of I would like to comment on what was mentioned by Vera, Edgardo, and others before. that SMEs they usually have challenges of getting out of their the local home markets, and also they have challenge with commercialization and marketing, because of course you have limited resources, and the resources you have, of course, you also invest them a lot in developing your products, services, your solutions. So for example, even this label that I presented, it was one of the it's one of the tools in helping to kind of cope with this challenge of marketing yourself, presenting yourself on the market. Of course, it's not a solution to all the problems, but it kind of gives a really good basis to present yourself and also be recognized by, let's say, by your potential customers, because they recognize the label. Let's say they already have some kind of image of who you are. And when it comes to, because of course there's I think marketing and commercialization is not the only challenge the companies have. So when it comes even like exact access to market and finances, at EXO we have another initiative, which is Cyber Investor Days, where we organize these business matchmaking events between companies, cybersecurity companies, and investors and end users, where they can have these B2B meetings and present the solutions, and get the investment and new business partnerships developed. So I think one of the ways to contribute, I think also invite to join EXO Working Group 4, so where you can also directly contribute in these policies, or also I think there is Digital SME is also our member, who's also kind of actively contributing to this, as they have a really good membership, and so therefore overview of all the challenges experienced by the European SMEs. So I think that would be my intake. Also, we have, for example, another initiative which is from paper is developing into the concrete actions. This is like the creation of the Pan-European Cybersecurity Investment Platform. Because as I presented in my my talk before, a lot of companies get acquired by non-Europeans, because basically in Europe we have this market fragmentation, and therefore we don't have a lot of capital, financial capital, that can be invested in the most prospective companies, so that we can grow and scale up in Europe. And for them it's easier outside Europe. So this is another challenge which is also addressed by EXO. So I think if you would like to know more, feel free to contact us.
We certainly do. Thank you.
I don't know if I'm still on time to add something, because I found both discussions very, very relevant, and for us who work with public authorities, even though we are not so challenged making the company viable and selling products. In fact, we have to go through procurement process, and that's nothing that you can help. However, when approaching public authorities, they have no time for research and development. Typically, the ones who have, they participate in such activities, but most of them have a lot on their plate, and there's no time to it for R&D and putting that on their agenda. So I think that these sort of labels who provide trustworthiness and assure them that are safe is very good on the one hand, but I think that the proposal before of having the Digital Innovation Hub kind of experimentation pool of resources, I think it also helps, because on not only we have the label that certifies this is 5G cybersecurity compliant, or this is safe and assessed by these entities, but we also have these demonstrators where they can try out, they can perform experiments. So creating test beds, creating what in Portugal we are calling tech-free zones, where public authorities really can test out whatever happens: autonomous vehicles, drones, 5G corridors and 5G deployment, AI use cases that really support, but can also be used to perform some automatic monitoring and doing such labels. So going beyond the tech-free zones, going beyond digital innovation hubs, and bringing the two worlds together, that would be really, really useful, because we would have playgrounds and demonstrators, and we would have the certification and labeling all in one place. I think that would really boost the procurement process and supporting our commercialization activities.
Thank you, Ricardo. Yes, I think that's a very nice idea to connect the dots. I would be really interested also to hear what Edgardo thinks about that, because you're involved in one of the working groups to develop, as you mentioned, the certification schemes, one of the certification schemes. And yeah, I'm just curious if you have any further comment on what has been said, because you're already part of one of the groups and you know the environment a bit better. So.
Well, the working group hasn't started yet, so I can't say anything, but it will start in October.
Okay, all right. So we'll have to have another meeting in October then.
Yeah.
Where we can discuss this further. Okay. All right. We only have 4 minutes left. I actually still wanted to ask a technical or more technical question that was raised by one of the participants about interoperability, because on the one hand, of course, interoperability is a very important issue for having an open market or open environment for companies. At the same time, it poses challenges for privacy and data protection. So if anyone wants to comment on this issue, interoperability versus data protection, privacy, please go ahead. I'll give you 2 minutes, and then afterwards we're going to wrap up. So any volunteers to comment on interoperability? Samuel? Okay.
Well, the data protection interoperability is one of the key technical concerns in our project, in our Geiger indicator that I was presenting before. In particular, we observe that there are big barriers for information sharing out of SMEs towards provider clouds, for example, or kind of as soon as data leaves the company boundaries, it's worrisome. And in our eyes, and that's also our approach, we need to take these concerns serious in order to have a chance to get adopted. And I consider what has been presented in the second section in relation to 6G and the edge-oriented architectural approaches can be very, very attractive as a means for solution and to simplify the whole data exchange problem. So indeed, it's a challenge, and we need to respect the challenge. And any architectures of systems that we are building needs to respect these challenges. Otherwise, they're not going to be adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, Samuel. And yeah, good to hear that people are really thinking about this and to make sure that this issue of protecting data versus interoperability does not limit some of the development of some of the innovative solutions. I would like to give every speaker the occasion to have a final word, because we'll close in about 2 minutes. And yeah, so I would like to hear if you have any final recommendations on how to support the market uptake of innovative SME solutions in Europe. Vera, if I can start with you, just a final word.
Yes, so to address your question and also hearing the previous discussion, something that came to my mind is that perhaps, at least when I think about Greece as well, and also public authorities that Ricardo mentioned, I think amongst us working on technology, it is easier, but when you need to convince stakeholders that come from other domains that they actually need your solutions, it's I think it's an issue about still educating on digitalization, if I can put it like this. And this, okay, it's a broader issue, of course, but perhaps these working groups and also EXO, for example, could sort of help in that direction. I think sometimes we lack in the non-ICT domain that needs the ICT technologies the realization that this would actually help them make their work more efficient, safer, address these data protection issues and so on. So it would be kind of, yeah, trying to sort of market a bit more digitalization, if I can put it like this.
Thank you, Vera. Yeah, very point taken. Ricardo?
Yeah, I fully agree with Vera that there are some barriers that we need to address when proposing technical solutions and digital solutions to other domains. And there are a lot of challenges out there. So we have the cybersecurity concerns, data protection. We have lack of interoperability and lack of open standards, or at least fully available and fully deployed in most of the places. So there is a lot, and indeed, individual SMEs cannot do that by themselves. That's why there is the room for these associations to bring together and prioritize and organize the main challenges that different stakeholders can then provide. And Europe is the best place to do that, where we can foster collaboration between different member states, different partners, and we really have these public-private partnerships where research centers and universities studied and research the state of the art. We have ethics guidelines being assessed, and we don't just push technology for the sake of it. We assess that we comply with safety and accessibility and other regulations, which slow us down a little bit, but that might not be seen as so bad all the time. But indeed, I think this cooperation between different stakeholders is essential, because we want to improve Europe in general. Different member states with different languages, different context locally really can learn from others and not stay close, and we'll be able to foster this cooperation one challenge at a time. We can start with a small piece on cybersecurity and then broaden the scope through these associations. So I really look forward to supporting and cooperating there.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. Vincent?
Yeah, so the same way I took the analogy of the mountain climbing for my presentation, where we are claiming to provide some kind of automatic lift to the top regarding to the software security. I would think that when we regard our commercialization stage, we are really at sea level right now, and I will invest on and the different organization, EXO and ISAM and yourselves, in order to get another lift for our company and fasten the commercialization. The main, for us, I would think the main benefit of the lift would be to provide us some demonstration booth where our solution could be demonstrated, so that at least people understand from this organization, understand what can be done with our solution, and how far it is somehow breaking, let's say, the ground and disruptive and providing some new opportunity. So we're
okay. Thank you, Vincent. Very clear. Samuel?
Yeah, I would like to thank you for this well-moderated workshop, and I'm very glad that our point was well taken up, that the large majority of end-user SMEs are abandoned and unskilled in cybersecurity, and that we need to learn more about them and adapt and tailor our solutions so that they have a chance to be taken up. And I would be extremely glad to follow up on this undertaking, on this enterprise, and maybe have later on further meetings and or even collaborations in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Milda?
Yes, so I think I think the one of the key elements is the fostering cooperation and providing the forum for SMEs to be heard. So, for example, what Digital SME, Geiger, and EXO is doing. I think another very important point is to provide these SMEs with the concrete instruments which can help them, in establishing themselves on the market. Some concrete instruments and initiatives that they can benefit. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Milda. Edgardo.
Yeah, I agree with Milda. It's we should the organization should offer not only labels and networking, etc., but more concrete support for commercialization. Maybe even having a platform to be able to evaluate different products and provide the means for the future customers to try them out or things like that, and also help in the commercialization.
Okay, I think we have some very concrete ideas for further collaboration. So I'm very happy for all of your inputs, ranging from raising awareness, educating, to really offering these concrete avenues for SMEs to really go to the market and be able to market their products, and also how to reach the other SME community that are the users. So thank you so much for your interesting presentations and the discussion, and we'll certainly be in touch. And yeah, with that, I'd like to close the workshop. Thank you for everyone who has been listening and who is going to view this, who was viewing this online as well. Finally, thank you actually to my colleagues, because I would have forgotten this point. We're going to have another meeting on the 29th of September, where we're going to talk about the twin transition and standardization to support the twin transition. Everyone, it's free of charge. You can register on our website. It's called the SBS ICT Forum because it's organized by Small Business Standards, an organization that is supporting the representation of SMEs in standardization organizations. And we are organizing this workshop on their behalf in collaboration. So 29th of September from 10 to 2, please save the date, and you can find more information on our website, and we'll also send another email to all participants. And with that, I would like to close. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.